Ever stared at your phone, zoned out while scrolling, and suddenly realized you have no idea how long you've been sitting there, where you are, or whether you blinked recently? Congrats! You may have casually dipped your toes into something that looks a lot like psychosis. Before you panic, no, you're not losing your mind, but the line between harmless habit and mental glitch is thinner than you think. Today, we're unraveling one particular, everyday behavior that's sneakily similar to the symptoms of serious mental health disorders. No exorcism required, just a closer look at what your brain's actually doing. Let's get right into it. Number 10, you create conversations that never happened. You're in the shower, you're shampooing, and suddenly, boom, you're in a full-blown courtroom-style debate with your boss, complete with opening statements and a surprise witness. They say something rude. You say something cooler than you've ever said in real life. And guess what? It never happened. None of it. This is called maladaptive daydreaming, and it's a perfectly common behavior until it's not. When you spend hours a day mentally scripting interactions with people who don't even know you're mad at them, you've wandered into territory that looks eerily like psychosis. In actual psychosis, the line between reality and imagination gets fuzzy. In your case, the line is still there. You just really enjoy standing on it in costume. These fantasy conversations feel good because they give you emotional closure without requiring confrontation, but they also keep you stuck in a loop, rehearsing pain instead of processing it. Over time, it makes you more reactive, more anxious, and less connected to what's actually going on outside your head. Basically, your imagination is writing fan fiction about your trauma and casting you as the main character with perfect comebacks. Number 9, you narrate your life. Like a movie, walking to the fridge, cue the dramatic monologue. Driving alone, time for an inner voiceover about betrayal, destiny, or why the guy who cut you off probably has unresolved childhood issues. Sound familiar? Congratulations, you've started self-narrating, a habit that turns your mundane life into a slightly unhinged audiobook. And while this can be totally normal, thanks evolution, excessive narration mimics one of the hallmark symptoms of psychosis, auditory hallucinations. Now, before you freak out, no, your internal dialogue isn't the same as hearing voices. But the mechanism is similar. Your brain is producing speech internally, and you're listening to it as if it's being said to you. The more intense the stress, isolation, or boredom, the louder the narrator. And if you're giving that voice a tone, an attitude, or worse, a name, yeah, your brain's starting to build an unpaid acting troupe. It's fine in small doses, but if you find yourself emotionally reacting to your own voiceover like it's a podcast you didn't subscribe to, that's your cue to check in with reality. Number 8, you zone out so hard, it's scary. Ever come to after driving somewhere and realizing you don't remember any of the trip? Like you could have driven through a parade of clowns and wouldn't have noticed? This is called dissociation, and when it happens a lot, it starts to look suspiciously like psychosis light. You're physically present, but mentally off in another dimension, and your brain loves it there. Dissociation is a common response to stress, boredom, or even overstimulation, but it also mimics the early symptoms of a break from reality. It's your brain's way of pressing pause, except it forgets to press play again. If this zoning out becomes your go-to coping strategy, you start living in a fog, you lose time, you lose connection, and reality starts to feel more like a theory than a fact. So if you find yourself waking up from autopilot and wondering how you got home, into pajamas and halfway through a bag of chips, yeah, that's not just distraction, that's your consciousness glitching like a corrupt video file. Number 7, you talk to people who aren't there. No judgment, but have you ever talked to your shampoo bottle like it was your coworker? Or argued out loud with someone not in the room? Or practiced an apology so vividly that you cried? Yeah, that's called simulated social rehearsal, and it's normal until you catch yourself talking to invisible people like they're part of your recurring cast. This behavior mimics the conversational style of psychotic episodes where people hear or respond to entities that don't exist. The difference is, you know these characters aren't real. You're just using them to emotionally regulate or rehearse what you wish you could say. The problem? The more emotionally satisfying your fake dialogue is, the more your brain wants to keep doing it. You start preferring these imaginary arguments because they're cleaner, safer, and no one interrupts you. And suddenly, you're a one-person soap opera with 0 commercial breaks. Number 6, you project meaning onto everything. You see a crow on a power line and think, bad omen. You hear a song on shuffle and decide it's the universe sending you a message. Your barista spelled your name right and now it's definitely going to be a good day. Or possibly fate. Or maybe both. This is called apophenia, your brain's tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things. It's the quirky cousin of full-blown delusional thinking, where everything becomes a symbol, a pattern, or a code. Normally, apophenia is just your brain doing its job, trying to make sense of chaos. But when you start giving spiritual significance to traffic lights or interpreting TikTok algorithms as divine prophecy, that's when you might be teetering on the psychological edge of a beautiful, personalized conspiracy theory. Psychosis level apophenia is when these connections become unshakable truths. But even on the harmless end of the spectrum, your brain is still fusing randomness into fate like it's directing a low-budget supernatural thriller. Bottom line, that crow wasn't sent to warn you, it just likes wires. Number 5. You replay the same thought loop for days. Let's talk about intrusive rumination, also known as the brain's favorite pastime. You know when a thought pops in and instead of letting it go, your brain traps it like a hamster in a wheel. Around and around it goes. That thing you said, that thing you didn't say, that weird look someone gave you at the grocery store in 2017. It's like your brain turned into a conspiracy theorist, but the theory is about you. Now, in psychosis, we call this perseveration, the mind latching onto a fixed idea, unable to let it go, even when it doesn't make sense anymore. Sound familiar? Because when you're stuck in a rumination loop, you're almost doing the same thing, except you still have enough self-awareness to say, "Ugh, I need to stop thinking about this." Of course you don't stop, because the brain is stubborn. It thinks if it chews the thought one more time, maybe it'll get a better answer. Spoiler, it won't. But your prefrontal cortex is going to keep trying anyway, like a detective obsessed with solving a case that no one asked about. Number 4, you start to forget what's real. Ever remembered something so vividly, a conversation, an event, a moment, only to find out later it never actually happened? Like you dreamt it, or imagined it, or maybe you just absorbed it from a movie and it squatted in your brain like it owned the place. This isn't just poor memory, it's a source monitoring error. Your brain stored a moment but forgot the label that said fiction or reality. Now here's where it gets spooky. This little glitch is a mild non-pathological cousin of false memory hallucinations, which are common in psychosis. In that world, people have full conviction that their false memory is real. In your case, it's just mildly embarrassing, like confidently telling someone you had sushi with them last year when they're like, "Dude, I was in Peru." Still, it's unsettling to realize how easily your mind can stitch fiction into your life story, especially when your memory feels so certain, because confidence is not equal to accuracy. Ask literally any person who's ever been confidently wrong on the internet. Number 3, you blur reality and fantasy on purpose. You ever catch yourself imagining an entirely different life? Not just a little wishful thinking, but full-on scripted fantasies? You have a whole alternate reality where you're more successful, more loved, or possibly a vigilante with a mysterious past and a really cool coat. This is escapist fantasizing, and yeah, it's a coping mechanism, a very popular one, especially when real life feels like a soggy microwave burrito of disappointment. But if you're spending more time in that fantasy than in your actual life, if your imaginary world feels safer than your reality, if the lines start to blur between what happened and what you wish happened, well, that's a red flag. In psychosis, this is called delusional ideation. In everyday life, it's just Tuesday afternoon after you opened a bill you didn't want to pay. The issue isn't the fantasy, it's when your brain starts preferring it, reinforcing it, building on it, until real life feels like the background noise. And suddenly, you're starring in your own mental Netflix original, but forgetting to do laundry. Number 2, you externalize your inner critic. You mess something up. Your brain responds with, "Wow, you're a disaster," but it doesn't feel like you said it. It feels like someone else in your head did. A separate voice, a little snarky, a little mean, and definitely not helpful. That, my friend, is your inner critic. Totally normal until it starts acting like a roommate who never shuts up and didn't pay rent. This voice can sound distinct, persistent, and weirdly convincing, and while most people can recognize it as just my thoughts being rude, others start to feel like it's coming from outside themselves. When that line blurs, things get dicey, because this is how auditory hallucinations sneak in. The truth is, your brain is fully capable of manufacturing a second opinion without you asking for it. It knows your deepest insecurities and has zero chill about using them as weapons. If your internal monologue becomes a toxic group chat, yeah, it might be time to check who's really in control of the mic. Because when your own brain becomes an unreliable narrator, the story gets weird real fast. Number 1, you start believing your thoughts have power. Let's say you're walking past a baby stroller and suddenly your brain throws out the intrusive thought, what if I just pushed it into the street? And you immediately panic, not because you would, but because you thought it. That's called thought action fusion, a fancy term for the belief that your thoughts are dangerous, that having a thought is the same as wanting to act on it, or that thinking something bad will make it happen. It's a brain glitch that overlaps with OCD, anxiety, and, you guessed it, psychotic thinking. In psychosis, people may start believing their thoughts can influence reality, that thinking of fire will cause a fire, or that thinking someone's watching them means someone is. And while you're probably not that far gone, the structure is scarily similar. Your brain treats thought as reality, and when that happens, you start policing your own mind like it's a crime scene. The good news? Having weird thoughts doesn't make you dangerous, it makes you human, but believing those thoughts define you. That's when things get trippy. So next time your brain whispers something insane, just nod and say, okay, that was weird, and move on. You're not cursed, you're just running some chaotic software. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.